So yeah, like wow, I'm honestly really surprised how like good this program was. I kind of went in expecting MS Paint levels of non-functionality, but you can see here like how I set up like all my layers and stuff, like the hair. I did a multiply layer for like clipping so that I could do like the shading and stuff. Um, you can change the opacity of things, which is really important for like, for example, here the jacket, like the turtleneck, was just way too strong when it was at 100%. Up here you have your undo and redo buttons. Um, but yeah, like this whole thing, I was really surprised at like how easy it was to just pick it up and mess around with it. Okay, so I have to admit, I was initially intimidated to pick up a new art software after about half a decade of using nothing but Clip Studio. But in light of recent events, as a preventative measure in case we have another scare, like the situation where they almost included Stable Diffusion in their software, which, by the way, if you didn't know, there is now a lawsuit against DeviantArt, Stability AI, and which is the company behind Stable Diffusion, by the way, and Midjourney, which I'm gonna go ahead and link in the description for you guys to like check out, in case you want to keep up with current events, which you probably should. I just didn't want to have something like what happened before with Clip Studio almost implementing something like that to mess up my future with art and software. I wouldn't want that to happen and then be forced to boycott and protest the software that I'm using and not be able to do my work. So I'm starting a mini series here where I try out art programs and review them so that you guys can spend less time trying to figure out what to use, particularly if you're in my position where you have a paid program already, but you have an existential fear about losing the ability to use your current software ethically, like from a moral standpoint. So, without further ado, this is my first impression of this software. Okay, so jumping right in, my first impression of this program. Well, number one, just to get started, you might have already noticed down here, there are so many custom brushes. Like, I was going through here and I saw up here, um, add a brush from the brush store. I went in and I was like, oh, what's this? I imagine, you gotta, like, buy everything. No, no, you just, you click and it downloads and it goes down there. Like this is already like witchcraft. um I also wanted to just quickly note here, I actually haven't even really I guess I'll just I I I don't know what any of that means. Resolution. I usually like to go with a higher DPI just because it tends to turn out better, and I can always downscale later. I guess we'll keep it with that for now. Paper size. Oh, you could actually pick your paper size too, which is really useful for like, for example, here it shows you could do the line stickers if you want to do like line stickers, which I've actually made sets in the past, but um I use Clip Studio Pro for that. There is no webtoon option there though if you are a webtoon artist. So just starting out looks like you get this regular basic interface. Like it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if these up here are actually I don't okay, so those are not like on the piece itself. Okay. So I guess just to kind of mess around here and see. Right now, stabilization is really low. But like if I wanted to like let me just I don't know. Yeah, that's very low stabilization, but you can go all the way up to 100 and then oh wow. So that would be more like this. Okay. So it's some pretty nice stabilization on here. Um, like nothing crazy. If it's really low, you're not gonna have to worry too much about it taking too long. Uh, but that's pretty cool already. Let me just grab some of these random ones down here. Okay. So yeah, their brush system seems to work pretty well. Let me just do rough G pen, see what this looks like. Let me think of what I'm gonna just randomly draw. I don't know. Okay. Alright. I kind of dig the grit on that one. Let me see what else. Watercolor brush. Which actually, if I go in here and start using some colors, I wonder how that would... Yeah, it just kind of goes over top instead of mixing. I guess you could kind of shade like that. Very interesting. So let me go here. So this is the gradient tool. And you can do standard, repeat, reflect. I'm gonna assume, yeah, I just puts a whole gradient on there. Let me see here. If I did this and I wanted this to appear underneath, I could do that. Come up here and then maybe I wanted to do like a clipping layer. Let's see how that goes. If I do that and then I wanted, I don't know, yellow to appear just on... I think that I'm on the... Nope, nope, I think... Let me... Okay. Yep. Regular clipping layer. I love it. But I noticed that the colors don't really mix too well. I mean, that's not really a big problem for me personally. Just because I tend to have more direct colors versus a ton of different, like, layered effects. And then they have a lot of different layer modes, it looks like, which is really nice. So you could do like darken, you do lighten, multiply, which, I mean, if you use multiply, even if you're using yellow, you're not gonna, yeah, no. Dodge. Oh, that created kind of an interesting effect. That green right there. So yeah, and it looks like you still have like the ability to lock your layer, change the opacity. It's quite interesting. I kind of like it. It's very bare bones compared to what I'm used to. Um, but it's not bad at all. What I think I'm probably gonna do, which as you can see here, they even have like a reference thing that you can actually have up. Right over here. You just have to open the file location. Okay. So yeah, what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually draw something and get back to you guys and show you kind of like what I think after I've actually like really used the program. So here are my thoughts, and I'm going to do my best to organize them as I go. So the first thing that I noticed personally is that the workspace is just so uncluttered. Like, if you look around here, there's like you can get rid of some of the stuff you don't need. Like, for example, if you need to change, if you want more room for like seeing other stuff, you can get rid of the brush preview and the brush size, um, like all that stuff. If you need to, you can always come back up here and then, of course, put it back. You can move them around, which is really nice. So you're able to switch around your docked windows. Like I just mentioned a little bit ago, you're able to change the opacity, the blending mode. Um, you can use a ton of layers, so you can get the effect that you want. Um, you're able to lock the layers, you're able to use clipping layers. Overall, it's fairly solid from what I have used so far. One of the really important things I noticed is if you look up here, you're able to actually change the stabilization of a tool, of a brush. So you can do that on a global scale, but you can also do it over here under the brush control, which is really nice. So you're able to basically set it lower, which basically is less stabilization, which gives you more of like a scribbly kind of end line. But then if you use the higher numbers, obviously up to 100, you can get some really smooth lines. I made a lot of use of that when I was doing the line art on Velma. So for me, a good art software should feel kind of like just an extension of the artist. So things should be fairly intuitive for new users. Um, I liked that there were a lot of tools that I could use, and all the options. I didn't really get too overwhelmed, because it wasn't like too much. I know Clip Studio, me personally, I found initially it was really intimidating because there's just so many different options. Um, and, despite the fact that there are less tools and options in FireAlpaca, I found that actually kind of helped. The really nice thing that I noticed is that they actually have, if I come up here, they do actually have the ability to like use gauge and blur, which is like my cheat code to everything. uh, which was really nice, and I was able to use that gauge and blur effect on a copy of her silhouette, which of course, as you can see, I used basically as a shadow, which was really nice. I also used it on the lettering that I did up here by hand. Um, and then another thing that I wanted to bring up really quickly, I'm not really an animation expert. I'm more of an animation noob, and I'm still learning how to use Live 2D. So I'm not gonna claim to be an expert in this space, but they do actually have an animation mode. And in here you can actually go through and like do keyframes and stuff like again, I haven't really gone a whole lot into this, so I can't really review that part very much. But that's there. While I only used one brush to complete my Velma fan art due to the simplicity of the art style, I did test out a few of the brushes from their free asset store, which is more like an asset cloud where you can pick and choose how many brushes you were going to burden your computer with. I ended up using one of the regular G pens. I think it was like either G Pen 2 or G Pen 1. I think it was Looking at it, probably G Pen 2. I just clicked on that and I'm having trouble finding that again. It might have been G Pen 2 or it could have been G Pen 1. I can't quite remember. But yeah, like they have the asset store here. You could click that to get there, or you could go up to the brushes up here. And from there, you basically just go through and you just add whichever ones you want. If you want to have like a rougher like brush to use like that, you could add that to your list, and that will actually go straight in there. So it's really helpful, and I really like it. You could change different settings for the brushes, so you can customize the brushes on top of that, which is really cool. Um, but yeah, the only quip that I really have with the lines in FireAlpaca is there's no option that I could find for creating vector layers. And that's kind of important because, in my opinion, it's not really ideal, especially if you're trying to do like animation. And now I know I said I was an animation noob, but hear me out here. There was a time in my life that I used Adobe Flash. I think Flash 5 was the last one that I used in the earlier days of the internet. So I understand the luxury of vector layers for animation. So I do think that that would make the perfect addition for this software. That's kind of like the one thing that I notice it's missing. Um, that said, I've noticed that the text function, if you come in here and you go to like type something, you can actually like preview all of the fonts. You can kind of see what it would look like if it was, you know, not just typing its own name there. Towards the bottom, you could see a lot of my downloaded, copyright-free fonts, which this one right here is the one I like to use most. Accensasui? I'm not sure how to say that. But either way, that's the one that I use. And then you could change a whole bunch of other stuff. You can add some anti-aliasing, which is already checked, as you could see. And that's so that it's not blurry, or rather, it's not pixelated and it's a little bit more blurred, so it's not sharp edges on the edges of the, like, individual characters. And then obviously you can pick, like, if it's bold, italic, strike through, all that fun stuff that you would expect to see in your text thing. So I did notice with the magic wand, I did struggle a little bit to use it because, like, in Clip Studio, I'm able to select multiple things, like multiple like areas at once. But I noticed I could only really do one with FireAlpaca, which isn't really that big of a fuss. Like, there's still ways I could do the same things. But that's just a thing that I noticed. So, and I think like the last major thing I wanted to point out here is you can actually snap your stuff to a grid, like when you're drawing and using like the pen. You could actually put stuff in perspective. So, should you use FireAlpaca? Well, I think it just depends. If you already use software that you like, probably not. But if you need a solid free art program, FireAlpaca is totally free and available for both macOS and Windows. I'm not sure if there will ever be a version for mobile, but I've seen a few programs available cross-platform that I will be reviewing in future videos. It's also worth noting that if you download the software over Steam, you can use dark mode, because people who prefer light-colored applications are wrong. If you found this video helpful, I'd love it if you guys gave the video a thumbs up, And if you're getting into the art scene and need somewhere to start, check out my video overview of some of the different art platforms. Thanks again, Lucky out.